This PowerPoint is, sorry, this webinar rather is being recorded today, and a link to the recording and the PowerPoint or slide deck used today will be provided following as well. That is me. That slightly pixelated picture on screen there is me. I've worked within the industry for 14 years and am certified with by Microsoft to talk about licensing and the various product offerings to customers. I also have the pleasure of working with Microsoft and developing the relationship here at Nexus to look at how we really go to market with their offerings and also really just drive that engagement both internally at Microsoft and also into customers such as yourself. So to outline today's agenda, I'll touch firstly on the Microsoft approach around security and then moving into compliance. We'll also move into a bit of touching on privacy and transparency around data. So really security, how Microsoft are keeping your data safe, the compliance, touching on again on their approach, but how they are verified with global and regional standards. And industrial standards as well, and then we'll talk about owning and controlling the data through privacy, and then Microsoft's visibility through transparency in their practices. And as I said before, closing out with questions and answers at the end of the session. So a lot of what I'm covering today, plus a great deal more detail, is actually available online. Microsoft are very transparent when it comes to their security and compliance practices, and really do like to provide as much information in the public domain as possible. So, as I say, a lot of the information that I'll be talking about today will be driven by Microsoft Trust Center for Office 365. As more and more products have come to the market with Microsoft, especially around cloud, they've been releasing other trust centers. So there's one specifically around Azure as well. So if you want to, as well as specifically Office 365, you're looking at other cloud services as well and want to understand security and compliance around those offerings, the Trust Center is a great place to start. Essentially, Microsoft want you to have confidence in the cloud and trust in their services when you're putting your data there, and confidence that their services offer the security, privacy, and reliability that you require. Resources that are available on the Trust Center can include anything from videos, white papers, through to the third-party audits that they go through in support of compliance. So whether that's based around ISO or SOC or around G-Cloud as well, that all these sorts of back-end audit reports that provide that certification are available through the Trust Center. This will there to again provide you that reassurance that your data will be safe with Microsoft when you're moving to the cloud. So with Office 365, the message that I get given and I hear over and over again when talking about data, more specifically moving it to the cloud, is that fundamentally you as an organization are the owner of that data. You control it, you own it, it's yours to do with as you wish. Microsoft simply manage the productivity services which enable you and your users within Office 365. So in considering delivery and management of these services, they consider some fundamental principles in providing you those services. So those are security, privacy, but they also include things like reliability and performance. And as I say, I suppose what I'm here to do today is provide you with that extra reassurance that when moving your data and utilizing these services in the cloud, they'll be safe, secure, and compliant with Microsoft. So just like to touch on to really back this up, some of Microsoft's experiences and credentials. They are one of the world's, if not now, the world's largest cloud providers and data center network operators. They built their first data center in 1989 and have been providing online services for over a decade now, since the release of the previous version of Office 365 BPOS and Exchange hosted, as it was originally known. They've even had consumer services that some of you may well be aware of that have preceded these, such as Hotmail, MSN, Xbox Live. Within these data centers, they've experience of running hundreds of thousands of servers in multiple locations around the world, and providing over 200 services to a billion customers. And of those billion customers, 20 million businesses, and in 88 countries. All of that giving the ability to constantly learn and evolve the services based upon the experience and customer feedback that to ensure that the services that they're offering are most secure and efficient as possible. So moving into the types of threats, or how Microsoft have broken down the types of threats that they see. They are outsider, insider, and end user. So the outsider threats, as you'd expect, are typically external individuals who want to access your data and resources. So so hackers essentially trying to get in. Then your insider threats could be anything from rogue employees who just simply want to cause trouble, or who understand the value of your data and information. So we'll try to utilize that. Sorry, just for some reason I've come off Do Not Disturb. Just want to make sure. Okay, great. It's fine. I'll just unplug that just to make sure that doesn't happen again. Right, let me just pull the power back up. Apologies for that. And finally, there's end user threats. End user threats could really just be anything. It could be an end user who just inadvertently shared sensitive corporate information without realizing, not intentionally, just inadvertently doing it without realizing there may be particular policies or procedures in place, or simply that they just weren't allowed to share that information externally. So Microsoft break the security best practice down around these three areas. Those are prevent breach, assume breach, and customer controls. Assume breach is where they assume somebody is already in the system, and covers things like red teaming and where they attempt to break into their own system. Prevent breach is where it's sort of standard things where they anticipate threats, covering things such as access to their data center and monitoring of that data center. And customer controls are the tools in which they will give you as an organization, or even to your end users, to keep your data and resources safe. So with prevent breach and assume breach, Microsoft see those as built-in service level capabilities to all users across Office 365, regardless of the subscription they have. So you could have just Exchange Online, you could have an E5, regardless of what license that you own, Microsoft will provide you those underlying service capabilities to, again, keep your data safe. So whether that's physical security, encryption at rest, or penetration testing of their environment, it's those built-in service capabilities are there to ensure security best practice. And as I said before, customer controls are going to be just as important. Microsoft provides you with the incredibly secure and complementary services, how to make sure that the when you're providing your data to customers, or whether you're passing it internally, they're giving you making sure that you've got the tools to ensure that that data is shared with who it should be. The right people have got the right visibility of what's being shared. So tools such as rights management services, data loss prevention, and even anti-malware for your email, and anti-spam, antivirus. So moving into touch on prevent breach a little more. This again is a service level capability that is provided as default, and they follow an in-depth approach and a layered security model, as you can see on screen, from physical security through to the smallest amount of data on your saved in your tenant. That Microsoft employ various techniques to make sure that data is safe. So all data within Office 365 will live in a Microsoft data center, and these data centers are geo-distributed all around the world to specific regions. These data centers are built from the ground up with data center security in mind, with things such as fire suppression and multiple layers of perimeter security. Perimeter security. I was lucky enough to go to the Microsoft data center in Dublin at the beginning of this year, and the security which they had in place was pretty impressive. They were using the same gates they use in Afghanistan to stop car bombs getting through. They even had a moat surrounding the building, to which the guys informed me that there was only one vehicle in Ireland, and they checked that we had was long enough, had a long enough wheelbase to be able to make it across the moat. And then there's also they also had things in place around multi-factor authentication. So engineers who want access to the data center and the service hosting the data, they would need to go through smart card multi-factor authentication, and also as far as facial recognition scanning, and it also weighed the person accessing the data center as well. So one of the guys suggested it was particularly unfair coming back after the Christmas break, having enjoyed a good amount of food, for it to flag up that the person accessing that might be a little heavier than they were before they left. But from an engineer perspective as well, those engineers that do have access to the data center do actually have a separation of duties. So the guys who actually have physical access to the servers will not have administrative rights to the application layer, and that works vice versa. So the application layer guys will not get hands-on access to the physical server environment. So moving on to the network layer. This is really the network that hosts the Office 365 content. Each of the networks within Office 365 are protected by secure network boundary. So services within Office 365 don't just have free reign to speak to one another, and they can only talk to each other using specific ports and protocols specified by Microsoft. The network is also constantly scanning itself from service to service and outside to in to ensure protection boundaries are in place. They also Microsoft will also encrypt data traveling within their data center and also to one another. So you've got that added layer of protection. I think it's SSL encrypted between data centers. So in the host and application layer, similar to how the networks have their own boundaries, the host you use to run Office 365 are not protected by secure domains. These don't offer any trust to any external service and are managed to essentially protect the hosts. They apply things like Active Directory group policy to enforce security principles and access control based upon the specific role of the host. Microsoft will also apply Windows and application patches to the hosts on a monthly basis, and that's the same with virus definitions as well. But obviously, if there's more pertinent updates required, they'll obviously apply those more expediently. But there's essentially a procedure in place for them to apply. It's a software development lifecycle is the term that they use to apply updates to those servers and applications. So when talking about the actual host machines within the environment, Microsoft also consider the people who have access to those to it and how they manage it. To administer in Office 365, you need to go through a series of checks, which include up to background checks, personnel screening, and fingerprinting, depending on the level of access. As I said before as well, that could include weight measurements and things like that. Also, as an admin, you go through annual training to ensure that you're up to date with Microsoft's latest security policies and processes. Microsoft also have a shared principle across Office 365 to do as few rather than not as many, as few manual touches as possible, and really do not want to touch servers or customer data, or want to do it as little as possible. This is something that they review on a month-to-month basis to understand that if they have had to. They want to understand what they can do next time, or if something was to happen again, what they can do to limit that need. So to try and be as hands off as possible. Obviously, if it does happen though, and these are typically driven by customer requests, such as data restores in SharePoint and Exchange, which require Microsoft to actually access the data layer. But just to add to this, Microsoft admin actually have zero standing access, so they do not have accounts readily set up to be able to go in and access any customer data. If they do need to access customer data, they will need to go through make a request via a system called Lockbox, or customer Lockbox as well as it's also referred to. Essentially, the procedure for this is an admin will make a request, and that request will need to come with a specific reason, such as a call reference number logged by a customer. That request will then be reviewed by a manager or one of the security admins to ensure that it's actually a valid request, and also that the admin who is making that request has those appropriate privileges, so they've gone through their annual training, and they're certified to access that level of content. If that request is approved by by their manager, or even the security admin, the admin themselves will be provided with a temporary time-bound access, which actually is delivered to them in the form of a 26-digit one-time use password. This entire process being audited to ensure visibility of who and what is being accessed, and again this whole audited process is reviewed on a monthly basis, so that again Microsoft have that little as touch as possible approach to running the infrastructure. So that final layer within the prevent breach approach is the data layer. So Microsoft protect data in a few ways. The first is through isolation. So Microsoft obviously supports with Office 365 being a multi-tenanted environment. Microsoft supports data belonging to multiple multi-customers on the same physical hardware, but in a way that it enforces isolation. So one customer's data will never intermingle with another, and this is prevented using Active Directory organizational units and an authentication model. That just enables that every organization is tenant it remains in its own organizational unit, so that you are only able to access the data and the information that is available to your organization. So your information essentially. Microsoft also offer data encryption in transit, so it's protected not only when moving around Microsoft Data Center, but when moving from your infrastructure to the Microsoft infrastructure, and then it is at rest. It is encrypted using BitLocker protection. Excuse me. That is essentially just to ensure that in case of any potential drive loss or theft, and on the rare chance that all the other procedures that they've put in place sort of haven't worked. But with OneDrive and data encryption, they actually go one step further by using something called shredded storage. So depending on the size of the document, it will be split up into chunks, and each of those chunks are saved into their own storage container. So an example, a document gets split up into 4 storage containers. Each of those containers are then encrypted with their own unique key, and then those keys themselves are encrypted and renewed on a daily basis. So for somebody to access that data, they'd have to somehow find where all 4 chunks are saved within the Microsoft infrastructure, then again find all 4 keys, and then understand how to encrypt all of that, which is highly unlikely. So moving into the assume breach approach from Microsoft, beyond all those preventative measures that they take, Microsoft also work on the assumption that there's always going to be potential risk that they need to protect themselves against. They do this by not only monitoring real-world incidents and ensuring they're protected against these, but also through the use of something called red teaming. So Microsoft have a team of engineers who are referred to as the red team, and it's their full-time job to assess Office 365 services, and are incentivized to try and break in using real-world tools and techniques. Obviously, there are concerns around that, but they have there's engagement rules around red teams, so they can't target customer data, they can't impact service availability, and they're not allowed to compromise in place security. They're also tasked with completing vulnerability assessments and reports on the environment, so that essentially once they've identified a vulnerability, they will raise an incident ticket, and then another team within Microsoft, referred to as a blue team, will get to step in, and they get to test their detection and response capabilities in rectifying and ensuring that in case of real world incident that they are able to prohibit whatever the vulnerability the red team have discovered, and ensure that there's fixes in place so that doesn't happen. So the other point to touch on there is the machine learning section. So Microsoft are constantly monitoring and reporting on the Office 365 environments, and they do that utilizing big data and machine learning cloud services to understand and recognize patterns and identify anomalies. So they're constantly scanning that Office 365 environment to look for any unusual or suspicious activity. And once that is identified, using the machine learning tools that's currently always churning that database, it will be flagged and scored by Microsoft based upon its severity. So obviously, the higher the score, the quicker they need to act upon it. Okay, so now we'll move into the customer controls available to you from a security perspective. So one of the big concerns around the move to the cloud is really that loss of control. So Microsoft have built in a lot of security controls to enable you to manage your own tenant and your own data. First on there is rights management, which will take you less than 5 clicks to set up and protects your file your data at the file level. I could probably just show you actually an example of information protection on the screen at the moment, which is information protection in Outlook. So if I just if you bear with me, just fire up a new email. So that hopefully you can see a new email on the screen there. So we have this running here, and Nexus have also got it set up in a demo environment as well. But if we click on options within this email, I can specify permissions on this email using rights management. So for example, I could say when sending this email as an end user, I could say do not forward. So when sending this email, this person that I've sent it to will not be able to forward, but there's also policies as well. So it's confidential view only that we've specified here, and also confidential, where we've specified so here we go. So it's privacy for internal users only. This content can be modified, but it cannot be copied and printed. So these are policies that you can apply internally. These are policies that are applied to Outlook more specifically, but through rights management, you can also apply these to documents as well, should you wish to do so, or should you have a requirement to do so. So let me just pull the I went back up on screen. So again, moving on from that, there's encryption at file level. So it enables your users to encrypt your data when sending emails internally, externally. They also have antivirus and anti-spam built into the service using Exchange Online protection. Which can be managed within your Office 365 tenant to understand and identify emails that are potentially harmless or not, and tag those accordingly. User access and identity management is making sure that who is accessing your system is who they say they are. So one of the key ways in which Microsoft do that is using Microsoft Azure Active Directory, which synchronizes with your on-premise AD using Federation and provides such tools as single sign-on and multi-factor authentication. Single sign-on essentially provides users the ability to access email and data within Office 365 using the same credentials that they would use when logging into their PC each day, negating the need for them to use additional passwords. So what I've seen before is people having saved passwords on their desks and stuff. Well, with single sign-on, you will just need to remember essentially that one password, because it's essentially the one that you use every day, as I said. Multi-factor authentication is really adding that additional layer of security on top of this, so that it requests your users to provide an additional form of verification when accessing your Office 365 services. this can include one-time passcodes via an app or text message, or even an automated telephone call. So they could say, "Call me." They get called and they enter a PIN just to confirm that they are who they say they are. And again, that is set up in a few clicks in the admin portal. Lastly on there, Office 365 includes basic mobile device management features, such as a policy to ensure that when users are accessing corporate data or their emails via their mobile phone, you can enforce them to put a PIN code on their phone. And also there's the ability to do remote wipe in case of theft or they happen to misplace their phone. So that's really that's really touching on the security side of things. I just want to now move into the compliance section. I should have said at the beginning of the session, the compliance side of things is quite sizable, and I'm aware that we've got varying different industry types on the phone on the call today. So I'm going to touch on compliance, but realistically, if you want to discuss your more specific needs, please do reach out to myself and Nexus, because as I say, it can be quite specific to your industry. For example, Microsoft don't have a specific compliance regulatory sign-off for legal, but in working with other customers, we've identified that actually through the standards controls that Microsoft have got in place, they do actually meet the requirements for the legal profession. But really, Microsoft's approach to compliance is as it shows on the screen there, in two ways. Those are global and regional or organizational, regional and industry specific or organizational standards necessary for you as an organization to demonstrate yourself the tools that you're using are secure and reliable, but also for Microsoft to show you that the tools that the services that they're delivering to you are compliant within your industry sector. Again, as with security, Microsoft also look at these. They separate these as built-in capabilities, such as meeting ISO standards under global compliance, and also customer controls, such as data loss prevention and archiving, to enable you to meet your compliance requirements. So, with regards to the built-in capabilities, Microsoft have control standards which are audited by both regulatory compliance and independent bodies to enable them to demonstrate that they meet all requirements for certification where possible. And as I said before, when I mentioned about the Trust Center, Microsoft make these reports readily available through there, so that you can view those at any time should you wish to do so. Office 365 also has almost 1,000 controls in place today, which meet the required standards of 26 international, regional, and industry-specific compliance bodies. Selection of those are obviously on the screen there. So, as an example, to achieve ISO 27000, which certifies Microsoft's ability to deliver secure services, of those 1,000 controls that they've got in place, actually for ISO they only need to meet 170 control standards. So those 1,000 control standards are there, but each of those certifications, the 26 international across the world, they've got more than enough in place to meet specific requirements. Displayed on the screen are the UK and Euro specific compliance standards to meet. Just touching on a couple of them based on identification of people that are going to be on the call today. They've within the past few years, they were
met the G-Cloud IL2 standard, which certifies Office 365 as suitable for public sector organisations. So these include local and some central government bodies, as well as NHS trusts. This offers a protect level of security for data processing, storage, and transmission. I think that is up to secret level as well. I believe in speaking to a customer more recently, I confirmed that. For them. SOC 1 and SOC 2, so those are international standards for accountancy and provide confirmation that Office 365 in order to meet standards covering both design and operational security. And then finally, there's the EU model clauses on there, which is a European standard Microsoft complies to, which Microsoft are providing contractual guarantees around the secure transition of data within the European region. And Microsoft were actually the first cloud partner to meet and be certified in EU model clauses. Looking forward, some of you may already be aware of the GDPR regulation that's going to be coming in 2018. Looking at the visibility that I've had so far, Microsoft comply with those proposed standards set out. So all being well, that should just be a paperwork exercise for them to be able to comply with those standards, but we shall see. So as I mentioned, again with compliance, they give you those customer controls, those tools in which you as an organization can meet your compliancy needs. So the first one there is data loss prevention and exchange in SharePoint. It stops sensitive information leaving your organization. It also enables you to set up alerts, such as identifying when credit card information is emailed, enables you to install policies to stop this happening. There's also, as another side to this, there's also a user self-service option for DLP, which provides them the ability to override any policy, but that will require that user to essentially accept that risk and sign off that they accept that risk, and also that they provide justification as to what they are doing is for a good enough reason. You could potentially look to mix this with your security controls, such as right management. So you could say that we can specify data loss prevention on emails, and also encrypt that email so that when that data is being sent, it's also that email is encrypted. If we then look at data loss prevention fingerprinting, this can be applied to sensitive documents, so that if you've, for example, in pharmaceutical industries where you've got you've obviously got this IP that you want to protect, where you've come up with this new wonder drug. That document can be given a DLP fingerprint, so that any subsequent documents that look similar to this, those will be scanned to determine whether they need to comply with those data loss prevention policies as well. There's also email. There's obviously a spelling mistake on my slide there, but that should be email archiving and retention. So those are built in for governance, so it enables you to apply your own retention policies, and and there's also an in-place hold feature to capture emails that also shouldn't have been edited or deleted by a user. In litigation situations, Microsoft provides you with a web-based discovery tool, which enables you to search a user's mailbox for emails or content pertaining to a particular legal case. And to save you having to sift through multiple emails of the same conversation, it also provides deduplication within that service. Again, that whole process being auditable, so you can ensure that controls are met around that. So one of the last subjects I want to touch on is obviously is and it's quite pertinent with some organisations is around privacy. So as I said at the beginning of the session, Microsoft state that essentially it's your data, and Microsoft simply provides you with the services to enable you. So again, it's yours to do with what you wish. You control it, you own it. It's your data. This means that from a privacy perspective, they don't do any advertising, and they don't scan your emails or documents for advertising purposes. They're also transparent about what they do with your data. So essentially, who has access to it and where it resides. And this information is readily available on. So there's a web address on screen, which you can go to, which will tell you within which obviously regions your data is held. So within the past year, Microsoft has opened 2 new data centers in the UK to enable them to comply with industry regulations within the UK. What we are finding is that customers are going to be able to move their data from the Dublin data center across to the UK. That is coming, but with new tenants, they are being set up in the UK. This is to ensure that they meet with UK specific compliance standards, and I also expect Microsoft to attain more and more standards awards around that through having those UK data centers. And then finally, just the last point on there around privacy controls. Microsoft offer extensive privacy controls across the services, which can be set through those customer controls that mentioned, such as rights management and DLP, to ensure that your data is safe when leaving your organization, and only the people that you want to see can view it. This can be applied at an organization level, so you can set it as policy for your organization, but again at a user level. So like I showed you with the email, where that user can specify the policy around that email. So last really thing I want to touch on, and it's something that I hear a lot about, and you read more and more in the press around migrating to the cloud, is law enforcement requests. Microsoft are particularly vocal around this, and you may or may not seen all the information around a US law enforcement agency requesting information from Microsoft for a data center in Dublin. Microsoft are fighting this tooth and nail, which to the point where it's even in the high courts in the US, which they recently had a ruling in their favor around, and that campaign is sponsored by the likes of Google, Amazon, Facebook, and really as an industry, I suppose they're getting together to drive that message around access to people's data. But as it shows on screen, Microsoft are transparent with law enforcement requests. I've taken this from, so there's a web link down the bottom. It shows you the requests that they've had from law enforcement in the UK, which doesn't look particularly severe. But you can see that there's obviously a number of percentage of those requests have been rejected, so they could be rejected for multiple reasons. They also publish a report twice a year detailing all those requests that they receive, and again that is available through the Transparency Hub on the Microsoft website. But Microsoft approach to this, when they do get requests from the law enforcement agency, is really quite standard and quite simple, in that they say that the data on their servers is the customer's data. So if they want any specific information, those requests are simply forwarded on to the customer. It's not for Microsoft to divulge that information, which as I say is really nice and straightforward from their perspective. Again, harking back to the beginning of the session, all the information I've discussed today and a lot more detail is available in the Microsoft Trust Center. So if you've got any particular compliancy or security understandings that you need, please use it as a point of reference, because it is all there. There is more information that I am able to cover in a webinar. So if you do have any specific, please check this out. Also speak to me as well, because as I say, we've had experience of working with customers around compliance and Office 365 within specific industries, and have been able to identify and confirm compliancy around these services.